So it's been a great day so far. And just to say, Amra actually does enjoy Korean food.
I do.
That's the only part that she's missed out earlier.
Yeah, I do. So that I have a love of Korean food. So that's how I really, and actually meeting Deborah has kind of opened my eyes to the kind of cultural piece around Korea. Because I love Korean food. Yeah. So that was my kind of insert, how I got in.
Okay.
The food. Yeah.
So did you... Sorry, that's got more questions coming. So did you already love Korean food before you came to New Malden?
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
Had you been to Korea before? Obviously,
No,
this is your first... No, of course it wasn't.
Yeah.
You said about the culture.
Yeah.
Thai food is one of my favourites. It's above Korean food, I have to say.
I put Korean above Thai. That's terrible.
Oh, really?
My mum would
okay.
kill
Well, there
me.
you go. Yeah.
Well,
actually...
don't be listening to this podcast. My mum
right,
would kill me.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Thais are very proud as well, aren't
Yeah,
they?
we
stuff.
are. Yeah.
But I mean, my number one is Indian, so don't worry. You're
okay.
both out of the running.
Wrong festival.
Yeah, your real festival. This is the Not So Korean podcast with Jay and Tim. I am Jason Verney, and although I'm the guy you'll hear and or see in this episode, podcasting partner and good friend Timothy Home can also be heard at times from behind the camera. If you do happen to be listening to this episode rather than watching it, you may want to tune into the video version instead, because you'll see beautifully coloured handboks worn by two of those we interviewed, but also the colourful personalities of all those interviewed, plus hopefully feel a bit of that day's atmosphere itself. So, since the summer of 2021, when we began the No So Ko-Po, we've covered various events as well as quite a few interviews and attended a few different festivals. What will follow in a couple of minutes or so is a series of interviews from one of those festivals. That's the Kingston Korean Festival, which took place in New Malden, also known as KoreaTown, home to Jay, that's me, Tim, and Europe's largest Korean community. The interviews begin with two British Asian women. That's British Thai and British Korean. They're known as being Brasian. Then a lovely guy named Philip, who's a Korean sort of enthusiast, but also a fellow SEWOL ferry activist with yours truly, and sometimes Tim, and a woman involved in various important local groups and issues. Her name is Jane. Plus, it was decided to include, at the end of these three interviews, one we also conducted that same day. It made sense to include it in this episode, so you've got three that haven't been seen or heard before and one that might have been. So it featured in a previous episode, and that is with Rachel from the charity Mind in Kingston. Links for Mind in Kingston and Being Brasian are at the end of this video, if you do see the video version. Okay, that's enough from me. Let's hear it from them. Here we are, we're still at the festival, and we're talking to the two members of Being Brasian, and let me pass you over to them where they can introduce themselves.
Hello, so my name's Amra, and I'm part of Being Brasian, and also with me is the lovely Deborah. So today we are Being Brasian. Being Brasian is a channel that we created to basically represent the fact that we found that there was a lack of people representation, and the fact that we were British and that we were Asian. We wanted to sort of show that experience of what it was like to grow up as British, but also of Asian heritage, Southeast Asian heritage. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. And when did you set up this Being Brasian? Can you remember when that was?
Earlier this year. We started our channel earlier this year. Amra is actually British Thai, I'm British Korean, and we do monthly podcasts, and we're also on YouTube as well. But yeah, it's earlier this year that we really got the wheels, moving and started our platform really.
Yeah, I've seen one or two of your videos or parts of them, and that you do have a really good conversation, on the subjects that you cover. Yeah, that's right. And did it come? Was it spurred on by what happened with COVID and the racial elements that occurred there?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Well, as you probably know, due to the pandemic, there was an increased hate towards our Asian community, and there was no discrimination in that, you know, we all look, if we look Chinese, if we looked of Chinese heritage, then obviously we were targeted. So we were seen to be the virus, and we wanted to change that perception. Obviously, if somebody looks different or seems like they're from a different cultural background, you're an easier target because people don't know what you're about, what your culture is about. So we wanted to break that ice. We wanted to make sure that people knew that, yes, we are proud of our heritage, Asian heritage, but we also wanted to show that actually there's a lot of similarities between British culture and Asian culture, and we wanted to also show the uniqueness that we were born here as well. So
yeah, it's great that you're from Korea and you're from Thailand. Actually, two countries I love. Actually, I've been to both many times, and it's actually interesting that when this all happened, when COVID happened, it was more the Chinese, so it's and Korean, because people don't know the difference. Unfortunately, people, you know, don't necessarily know the difference. So it is interesting that you're a Thai person, and it's not just the let's say Oriental, maybe, or I don't know what the best word to say. Right? Yes. What was that? Sorry.
EC.
Yeah, EC. Right. Yeah. So that's interesting to me, anyway. So can I just ask you about the festival that we're at, and what's your experience of it so far?
So from an outsider's perspective, because obviously I've not actually ever come to New Malden, would you believe? I've lived in the UK for most of my life, and Deborah really was the one that kind of inspired me to come today and to see Korean culture, South Korean culture. It's something completely sort of new to me coming to the festival. So I saw it from a outsider's perspective, and I just found the event really interesting. I really liked the speeches at the start. I could see the proudness that people had when they were, you know, when the anthem was going and people were talking about sort of the historical piece. So that, for me, that was really interesting. And the games and stuff, the more fun bits of just seeing what culturally the differences are. Okay. So yeah, for me, it's been a really eye-opener, really good experience. Yeah.
And yourself?
Obviously, I'm Korean, so for me, it's a different perspective. It's things that I'm familiar with. However, it's just been actually quite touching to see so many people turn up to celebrate, you know, Korea's culture and actually have fun with it and not turn their nose up at it and join in, and everyone's, you know, having a great time. And when I see that from a Korean person's perspective, I feel really proud of my country and how much it's been welcomed into Western society. So it's been a great day so far. And just to say, Amra actually does enjoy Korean food.
I do.
That's the only part that she's missed out earlier.
Yeah, I do. So that I have a love of Korean food. So that's how I really, and actually meeting Deborah has kind of opened my eyes to the kind of cultural piece around Korea. Because I love Korean food. Yeah. So that was my kind of insert, how I got in to the food. Yeah.
So did you, sorry, that's got more questions coming. Yeah. So did you already love Korean food before you came to New Malden?
Oh, yes.
And had you been to Korea before? Obviously,
no,
this is your first. No, of course it wasn't. You said about the culture. Yeah. But there is Thai food is one of my favourites. It's above Korean food, I have to say.
I put Korean above Thai. That's terrible.
Oh, really?
My mum would kill
well, there you go. Yeah.
Well, Mum, don't be listening to this podcast. My mum would kill me.
Bless you. Yeah. I mean, Thais are very proud as well, aren't they?
We are. Yeah.
But I mean, like my number one is Indian, so don't worry. You're both out of the running. Your real festival. And of course, someone that you were talking to earlier, and we know, is Hanguk Hapa. And of course, although she's the same in, you know, she calls, obviously she's a halfie. She's half. That's what she calls her. But she falls into that category, if that's the right thing to say. And I wondered, that's leading me on to, what similarities do you think you have with her situation compared to, well, what similarities do you think you have with her being a half Korean? Yeah. That's what I was trying to say.
I mean, it's interesting that you asked that, because I think Becky pretty much addressed it earlier. She said we actually have a lot of similarities in that even though she is half Korean, we do both have that experience of being British, growing up being British Korean, growing up in Britain, not quite feeling like we belong. And Becky was actually saying for many years she actually felt ashamed of her Korean heritage, and actually felt like she maybe hurt her mum because she was rejecting everything Korean, including the food, the culture, the language. And it was quite similar to my upbringing. I couldn't embrace my Korean heritage at first because so many people made me feel very alienated, like it was something that I should be ashamed of. But growing up, we've now both embraced it, obviously. We're both very proud. We're both in our handbooks today as well. And with Amra, the link is obviously, again, that British Asian heritage. We can understand it from a British perspective, but also an Asian perspective. So that's our similarities, I guess, with Becky.
Okay. And just leading on from that as well, your sort of not fan base, that's probably the wrong thing, your followers and audience, what are they most like? Is it from every kind of country in Asia? I mean, even going from not even Southeast Asia, even going from as far as the less, sort of Afghanistan area or whatever, have you got followers from everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah. I actually have someone, I'm part of a choir, and he really enjoys our podcasts, and he's actually from Portugal. So he finds them really interesting. He finds similarities in that, because some of the topics we've talked about is around family and that sort of thing, and he can see the crossover in some parts of it. So actually that's been quite good to know that we've got people from other...
Yeah, because thinking about that, even if a Portuguese person was living here, they might feel a bit like you guys. Yeah. They might still be an outsider. Okay, they don't look Asian.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they would still feel like they're not British, and they could be racist. There could be racism, of course there is. Yeah. So thanks for your time, and I wish the best for being Brasian and all your individual sort of endeavours as well.
And to you as well. Yeah. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching.
Introduce your name.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Philip Todd. I'm from, I live in London, but I'm from Scunthorpe originally, up north.
Okay, thank you. Just wondered how you got into Korean culture.
Yeah, Jason, I mean, I think it all started about 15 years ago when I read an article in the Times newspaper. It was actually about North Korea and the Korean Peninsula politics, and that got me very interested in all things to do with Korea. And from that I decided I'd challenge myself to try and learn some of the Korean language. And living near New Malden, I'd always been really fascinated by the Hangul signs and how that alphabet worked. So it just seemed like a good opportunity.
So that's kind of a happy coincidence that you got interested in Korea, but you also lived near New Malden even back then? Did you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I live just up the road near Surrey. I've lived there for 25 years, and so it's a very happy coincidence that I live so close to KoreaTown. Yeah. It's definitely helped to engender my interest.
Yeah, and you've just come to this festival, and I just wondered, sorry if we caught you just as you were starting, but what do you think of it so far?
Well, I was slightly disappointed to miss the start of the folk game, the Keepy Uppy game, which name I forget, which I reckon I might have aced if I'd been here earlier. But you never know, I might have a go at the chopstick game. Okay. But I'm looking forward to having a look at the food stalls, and I think there's a Arirang performance later as well.
Yes.
But I guess overall I'm just really happy to see the Korean Festival back again in Kingston and in New Malden in particular. I think that's great, and it's just wonderful that we're all able to to share in sharing this culture together. So
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask you whether you preferred it in New Malden or Kingston, but I think it's a good idea. I mean, it works in both places, but I'm glad that you kind of approve of it being in New Malden. So that's good.
Yeah, I think so. I think it kind of embraces the fact that we've got such a large Korean population in our borough specifically here. So
just relating to that, did you say, or have you been to this festival before, even when it was in Kingston?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I think I've been. I mean, there wasn't one last year, was there? But I mean, prior to that, probably 3 or 4 on the run. So once I discovered it.
I know that, like myself, you're very involved with the SEWOL ferry disaster or tragedy, and I wondered, when you got on board with that, I know I've known you for several years, and it happened in 2014. But what was the first thing that kind of brought that to your attention? Was it your avid news reading, or something else?
Well, actually, it was perhaps an unhappy coincidence, I guess, because I was due to go in to Korea, travel to Korea in May of 2014, which I did. So it was in the immediate aftermath. I was aware of it happening at the time, as a lot of the world was, and obviously was really struck by the completely needless tragedy of the situation. But then actually being in Seoul and seeing the suffering and the outpouring of grief really affected me. And I spent a lot of time in front of City Hall in Seoul, where there was the most enormous... Yes, exactly. Yeah, you know, where all the yellow ribbons were and the tributes, and it was just extraordinary. So yeah, that really affected me at the time, and you know, I was really happy to get on board once I came back to the UK and found you and everyone else.
Yeah, that was good. One last thing. I've noticed you're wearing a Korean T-shirt. Can you just I can read some Hanguk, and Timothy can probably read it, but I just wondered, can you explain where you don't need to strip off or anything?
Well, Tim will need to see the back.
Okay, so maybe you could just explain what that is.
Yeah, so this is a T-shirt.
Doesn't mean much on the front then, alone.
On the front, this is from Jeju City, from that same trip, and on the front, Tim will confirm, I hope, that it says no nagging. And on the back, I'll just take my coat off and turn around so Tim can see, and Tim might be kind enough to read it for me. I think it says something like, I will get a good job, I will find a good wife.
I'm gonna get married.
Well, that's good. So it's actually an invitation for a wife.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah,
Oh, that's why it's got a lot of words on the back. Yeah. Okay. Well, have you got any questions, Tim?
So, do you have a favorite Korean food or a favorite restaurant in Malden that you like to go to?
In terms of Korean food, I've always really liked bibimbap. I was lucky enough a few years ago, I'm not sure when it was now, probably 4 or 5 years ago, there was a bibimbap cooking competition, and in London, which miraculously I came third in, which was amazing. The winner got a trip to Korea, so I was a bit disappointed not to get that, but not entirely surprised. But I had a sort of a fusion of bibimbap and added black pudding to it, which the judges liked.
So that was like sundae, Korean sundae. Was that? But it was a proper black pudding.
Yeah, it was proper black pudding from Bolton. But yeah, exactly. It was like sundae, and I thought there was quite a nice sort of meeting of cultures there. So
because you're from up there, aren't you, Bolton? Yeah. Okay, is that all? Yeah.
Well, I could also ask maybe. So, how many times have you been to Korea, and do you have a favorite place in Korea? Yeah.
I've only been twice to Korea. I would have liked to have gone back last year, but obviously that wasn't possible. What I'm really hoping to do is cycle in Korea. So far I've just spent time travelling around, and mainly on coaches and trains, which are fantastic, by the way. But I've really got into cycling holidays recently, over the last few years, so I'd really like to explore the Korean Cycle Network, which is really, really good. I follow quite a few groups that go on the network.
Yeah, thinking just reading on from that, there is actually I keep getting emails. I don't know what it's from. It might be from the Jeju Weekly or something, but there's this site, they have cycle sort of Zoom calls or something, your presentations. But I'll have to try and find one. I sent one to Andrew before, who we know. It is. Even you just said about the trains being really good, and the buses are much better than the coaches you get here. Sorry, the coaches, but they're even from like Busan to Gwangju or wherever you've been. But yeah, it's never enough time in Korea, is it? No. In my opinion.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean the coaches are fantastic. Even the economy seats are pretty luxurious, and they have their own traffic lanes and everything. So yeah, it was fairly wonderful. I think I went from Seoul to Busan by coach, and it was fantastic. But I mean, obviously I love Seoul. I always stay as close to Myeongdong as I can. But yeah, Gwangju I've been to, Daegu. I've got friends in Pohang, which I like to visit. Jeju, obviously. So yeah, I've been all over, but there's plenty more that I haven't seen.
Well, I think I've been 7 times, and Tim's lived there, but you sound like you've been a lot already. Even in 2 trips, you sound like you've been a lot.
Yeah, well, it's such a long way to go that I always make sure that I go for at least 3 weeks if I possibly can, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that on occasion. So yeah, next trip's in the offing.
Okay, all right. Thanks very much, Philip. We just thought we'd do a little conversation with you there. Would you be able to just introduce yourself? Do you have like, do you go by a certain name or?
Sure, my name is Jane, and my Korean name is KIMJANG, and it's wind. I moved to England when I was 14 years old, and that was year 96. Now I explored my age. And I'm one of the councillor candidates for next year for the Kingston, and I'm just here to support Korean community.
Oh, okay. So when you said you moved here when you were 14, where you came from?
Korea.
So you came from
Yes.
Korea. So you've grown up. So you're not like a half Korean. You are Korean.
I am Korean.
It fully here.
Yeah.
And
Nearly 26 years.
Wow. Yeah. I would have said less. Compliment there.
Yeah.
But do you live in this area, or have you travelled?
I live in
there?
Surbiton.
Okay. Very
So
nice.
only 5 minutes drive.
Nice station there.
Yeah.
Lovely. Was it the type of station?
Yeah.
Art Deco.
It's very convenient getting to city, and because I can't live too far away from Korean restaurants or the supermarkets, it's the perfect location for me.
So because obviously you're Korean, do you get a craving like every day, or do you cook your own Korean food at home?
Every day.
Right.
I mean, I wish I could cook nice, but as you may have explored that it takes quite long time to prepare proper Korean food, like from the scratch. It takes about like at least 30 minutes or up to an hour, and as I'm a working mother, I can't stay in the kitchen more than certain minutes.
Yeah.
So I tend to come out, get takeaways, or I bring my family to the restaurants.
Do you have a favourite restaurant in New Malden?
I actually do have a couple, but for the certain dishes, there is different restaurants. They do the best.
Yes.
So, for example, for the barbecue, Jingoge is like one of the best. Yes. And for the chicken skewers, it's Udi on it's very close from here. It's near to the Park Road. It's very near to the Park Road, and obviously there's a Korean Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, Gung.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the good one as well. Gung is the good one as well, yeah.
And have you, sorry, I asked you a question about your hanbok. Did you make it yourself? Or
No, actually, my friend is one of the designer, and she lives in Korea. And I actually asked her a nice favor to make me something practical that I can wear. So this has got like pockets. Like here, so I can put my phone or like my business cards, and then it's the length is quite long as well.
Yeah.
So I don't have to be cautious about like flashing myself.
It looks, yeah. You don't do that, yeah. But it looks very lightweight compared to other handbags.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's very contemporary, kind of practical.
Oh, just to let you know, there's actually a video that I edited and we filmed coming up on the handbok playlist.
Oh yes, yes.
That's on the TV screen.
Okay.
Have you been to this festival before?
Yes, because this happened 2 years ago in Kingston.
Yes.
And I was there as well, and it was really a shame to miss it last year because of the pandemic.
Online.
But it's so good to be out and meet with the people in person. And when they did a taekwondo demonstration, I went like teary because it was just so good to see like people trying, and it's just amazing.
Handicapped and
Absolutely, and it's amazing to see the cultural exchange. And I really hope Justina is doing such a great job, and I really hope this continues.
Yeah. Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Don't keep it too long. But because this is in New Malden this time, do you think that's a better thing than Kingston, or about the same? Like, because obviously it's used to having a market square area, but do you?
I think it's a good idea either, but because we have KIMJANG Festival in November in New Malden, so it might be better. I don't know. It could be even better to have one in Kingston and New Malden, which kind of represent Korea is engaged with both of the town. But either, I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. One more thing. Sorry, just say your name for the record.
Jane.
Jane. Okay, that's
Yeah. Jane Lim.
Okay, it's really nice to meet you. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Mind in Kingston. First of all, does it have Mind in every kind of big town? Is there a Mind for all of them, or is it just something that's set up for Kingston?
Yeah, so there's National Mind, as I mentioned, which is obviously the main hub, and they do a lot of campaigning work. There's a lot of information and resources on there, but there's also about 140 local minds. So it is a little bit of a postcode lottery, but we are the main local one for obviously New Malden and Kingston. I think our two other nearest ones are in Richmond and Croydon. What we say to people, if you're living, working, studying in Kingston, if we're your local Mind, then we're here to support you.
Okay. Did you already? Before you were with Mind, I don't know how long that's been, but maybe you could elaborate on that. But did you already have any sort of enthusiasm for Korean culture before, or is it something that came about because of all this?
Yeah, so I've always loved travelling, and I've always wanted to travel to Korea. I haven't managed to get there yet, but I suppose actually from working for Mind in Kingston, I've been there for about 2 years, and just locally realising what a large population there is in New Malden and surrounding areas. And then I just started to look into, what mental health or wellbeing support is there for Korean speakers. And I actually found, I was quite shocked because there's really not much there at all. We obviously offer lots of different services to anyone who might be struggling or needs some support, but we weren't offering anything specifically for Korean speakers, so that was kind of where I started to get quite passionate about it and want to be doing more in terms of mental health and well-being with the Korean community in our local community.
Yeah, especially when you consider that this is a KoreaTown or whatever, but there's so many in other countries as KoreaTowns, but it's the largest one in Europe, so you'd think that there would be. There should be something like this already. So it was a bit of a surprise when there wasn't. I think you might have covered this, but
yeah, I know historically we have done a few bits and pieces as Mind in Kingston, but I think now, especially with the pandemic, all of our services are even more in demand. We know that there's such a high need out there, and we have been speaking to Korean community members and different organisations and just asking them, what support, what do you think is needed? A lot of people have told us, that there is still some stigma around talking about mental health and mental illness, which of course there is in every community, but particularly that they would like support to just kind of start these conversations and also have more support available. So we've applied for funding. We've been successful in getting a grant, so that's what we're really kind of trying to do a lot more in this area.
Well, I wonder then if the mental illness, whether some of it gets connected to racism as well. Because they have obviously not just Koreans, foreign people have to cope with it. But since COVID as well, you've had that. So do you get cases where they're struggling because of that, or other issues? Yeah,
absolutely. Racial trauma, or racism, of course, any kind of discrimination or mistreatment like that, of course, is going to affect your mental health, and I think we need to acknowledge that more and be talking about that more. And as you said, obviously with with COVID, there's been a rise in hate crimes and things like that, which is just horrendous, and so we definitely, that is part of it, that obviously that having experienced discrimination like that would affect your mental health, but also it's just the general stresses of life. All of us have mental health, and sometimes some of us struggle, and depression, anxiety, these things are kind of on the rise. So it's just looking at how do we cope with that, and how do we find kind of healthy ways of coping with it, and who can we turn to for support when we feel like that, and that's what we want to be, a place where people can turn to for support.
Okay, I'll turn to something lighter in a minute, but just sorry. Well, it's what you do. So,
happy to talk about it.
So basically, I was going to say because this is technically, and not just here, Worcester Park and other areas in Kingston itself. Yeah. You've got Koreans living together with British people and Filipinos and Indian. And I wonder, maybe there's less racism here because they are trying to gel together, whether if they go to London and experience it, central London, or even go to a smaller town. So I wonder how much, I'm drifting on to racialness here, but racism, but I'm wondering whether mental health is worse in a town where they've grown up, or whether it's Koreans that are just visiting, for a couple of years, but I don't know. But that's just me saying, okay, I'll turn to something light.
No, but that is interesting, and I think that's the kind of thing, those are the kind of questions we maybe need to be asking more, and saying what are the issues that people are being affected by, and what do they need support with. I mean, a lot of people talk to us about, it's the general thing of self-esteem, depression, low mood, stress, but absolutely, we can't deny that racial trauma and those experiences are very real. Yeah.
Well, I also, another question has come to me, but I wonder if, because they can be, especially the North, because there's a lot of North Koreans here as well, they can be keeping themselves to themselves, quite shy. Even the South Koreans can be quite shy. So I wonder if that, even getting into their mind or into their homes, I wonder how tricky that is compared to, let's just say, a British person like me. I wonder.
I think you've hit the nail on the head in that isolation. People, especially obviously with the year we've had as well, that's only been exacerbated. Like loneliness, isolation, these things, are really serious, and they can actually be life-threatening, because they're, none of us are meant to be alone, completely alone and isolated. So, and of course that can affect particular communities, and more so if the services that maybe as a British person we kind of take for granted we'd be able to access, if those services aren't accessible to everyone, they're not reaching out to everyone, then that's even one less avenue of support, and one less way of finding that help. So I think that's something that we can all be doing more and need to be doing more. And with our new project, the Magpie project, it will be about offering one-to-one support, group support for people in the Korean community, but also we want to be advocating for better accessibility, more translated mental health resources, just more support in general, really.
That's good. I mean, I'm going to ask you about the festival in a second. Sorry, I know you're meant to be doing your job here.
No, I'm good. It's good to talk to people.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, if anything, it's good for your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely, always.
But yeah, because there's also up the road there's Oxygen. It's like a charity. It's not like a chain. I guess what I'm trying to say is they help apparently with knife crime and stuff. People that are people suffering from that or trying to stop it. But the thing is, at least with your charity, you're focusing on this, whereas some other charities they might be, but you don't see it. I mean, maybe you see a lot of people obviously asking for money, but you're out and about actually wanting to. You're getting support. Yeah. Oh, you've actually got the Korean words. Yeah, I've just seen that. Sorry.
We've been doing this campaign today. So obviously this translates as what's your own kind of healing? What do you do to support yourself? So this is us Minding Kingston. This is the new project, the Magpie project that we're running. This translates as Your Mind Matters. Yeah. So we've just been inviting people to kind of write something on here that so people have been writing, you know, cooking,
we're hiring,
cooking, dancing, whatever helps. We've also been.
Oh, so this is all you as well. Right, okay.
So we've just been asking people to share a message to someone who might be feeling alone.
And these are mostly Koreans?
Yeah, so it's a mix of Korean and English.
Yeah.
There's actually some very sweet ones from, I don't want to
that's
fall
good.
over.
That's good. That one. Breathe. Nothing is perfect. Tomorrow.
Yeah, nothing is permanent.
Sorry, permanent, not perfect.
So we had some very sweet ones from some children as well.
Oh yeah, Korean children.
Yeah. Make them laugh.
Are you hiding the cakes here?
Oh, sorry.
No,
too much
sorry.
going
That's
on.
my 5th day without sugar, so I'm not going to have the cakes behind you. But one. Oh yeah.
No. Go ahead. We sort of stretch around here, so do have a look around.
Well, one thing is because this is now in this year. It's in.
I knew that was going to happen.
It's the wind.
You can edit that bit out.
Yeah, we do. Don't worry. Well, it's going to be we're doing audio as well as video, but yeah, don't worry.
A big
Sorry.
thud.
Yeah, no.
Thank you, Pinky. Thank you. I knew that was going to happen.
We might edit out, might not. Just but it's okay.
Real,
but again,
behind the scenes, real life.
We're doing it. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, BTS, but not that kind of BTS.
Yeah.
Back behind the scenes. But basically, all I was going to ask about the festival was, it's in New Malden this year. It's different from other years, and so were you there last year? And do you think it's a great idea having it here?
Yeah.
This festival as opposed to in Kingston?
Yeah. So obviously last year I don't think it was able to go ahead.
The year before.
Yeah, so I sort of moved locally a couple of years ago, so this is my first festival, so not having seen it before, I just think it's brilliant. I'm really loving it. I have been here on the stall most of the day, but we managed to get up and see some of the taekwondo and things like that, which was
with the handicap people.
Yeah, it was fantastic, really brilliant, inclusive, and so loved that. And but yeah, I think hopefully next year I'll rope in some more staff and my colleagues, and then I can have a look at what's going on.
Okay, thanks Rachel. First of all, thanks for following us on Instagram, and thanks for your time. I really, what you're doing seems amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this existed.
Well,
so
I mean that's the whole point of being here, to kind of get the word out.
And if someone like me or somebody wanted to join in with you, I mean obviously you said about volunteers, but you're mainly looking for Korean. Do you want non-Koreans as well?
So our the services we run a whole host of different services. So we have counselling, art therapy, physical activities. We do weekly wellbeing walks. We have a football team. There's a lot going on. So have a look on our website, Mind in Kingston. Yeah. We're on social media.
Yeah, getting involved. I mean, even if it's voluntary, maybe one day a week or something.
Absolutely, yeah. We're always looking for kind of help and new ideas of things we can explore and do. We have a podcast as well.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'll send you that.
Just Kingston.
Mind in Kingston.
Okay,
yeah. So we're so I think a lot of people don't know we're independent from National Mind. So all of our fundraising and our services are focused on local people and goes to developing the services that people need locally.
Right, thanks. I'll do it properly this time. Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Really good talking to you.
No worries. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure. Thank you for stopping.
That's right. Thanks. Bye.